All right. So I just wanted to talk about, kind of want to conceptualize what is consciousness or awareness, especially with regards to social interactions today. So this is a little bit of a musing on, I guess, sociology or just social interactions in general. So anyway, so imagine that this blue ball represents your kind of awareness. These are all the things that you think about in your life. The simple things from like I'm hungry, what am I going to eat, what am I going to wear, to the bigger things like who am I going to become, or who am I, or what am I doing here. And it's also the things that you like the music that you like, and all those kind of things. It's basically everything that you're kind of aware of, all the kind of total sum of the thoughts and the considerations that go through your head. And let's say that whenever you were a baby, you started out as nothing essentially, and then you grew and you started thinking about mom and dad and the toys you liked and all the things in the world that were going on, and over time you just started to learn more and more about what was going on. Let's say that the average person is somewhere in here, especially let's say maybe in your 20s or so, and I guess you could say that as you grow in general, you have this kind of like this natural growth that happens. Um, you may see some old people that are here sometimes, and you may see some young people that are here. It's not necessarily consistent, but as you do grow older, a lot of times you do learn more and you have more experiences, so it does get bigger. So anyway, so whenever you're here, now that's kind of an elaboration on kind of individual consciousness or individual awareness or intelligence. Now, what happens if we have another? Let's make them the same size. Don't want inequality. Let's say that we have a social interaction between friends or whatnot. So say when you're hanging out with friends, you have this common ground. You have these things that you both kind of understand and these things that you both think about. Let's say you both play the same sport, or you have the same class, or you like the same music. Stuff like that really, helps us to connect with people. So with a lot of people, you just have this like, ooh, you're just like, you barely touch it. You're like, oh, we're both humans. We both live in the same city and stuff like that. So we're like, ooh, right here. And then, the closer your friends are, the more stuff you have in common. Maybe you have a lot of stuff in common, but you're not. They don't. You don't know completely everything about each other. So there's still just a little bit of, of an edge here. So that's kind of like what friendship kind of is, um, and different levels of common ground. And then another thing that's interesting is if you add like a third person into the mix, like a group, kind of more of a group ideology. And what happens a lot of times with groups is that you have almost like a Venn diagram. You have the stuff that only this person likes, the stuff that only this person likes or thinks about, stuff that only this person likes or thinks about. A lot of times it is, we're talking about interest here, because that's a lot of what differentiates us. Obviously, we're all humans and whatnot. But it's like, there are differences. This person likes, let's say, more into creative stuff, and this person's into more, maybe like nerdy stuff and games or something. And this person's into maybe more like more of an athlete or, something like that. So then there's some common grounds between the two of them, between each pair. And then there's this part in the middle that is the common ground between all of them, and it's kind of like the almost like the least common denominator. It's the common ground in a way. It would be nice. What everyone would want is for everyone to kind of understand each other on a on this level, because the bigger the bigger this is, the more that there is to kind of interact, the more there is to talk about, the more that there is to do together. If we all like to play baseball, then we'll all go play baseball. If we all like the same movie, then we'll all go watch the same movie. Otherwise, what we want to do is we want to spend more time. We want to spend more time on our own, because ultimately what we want to do is we want to inhabit this full sphere. We want to be able to completely express who we are and the things that we like and the things that we are, thinking about and all of that. We want to be as big of a circle as we can be. We want to be our first full circle, but we also want to interact with others. Um, so there's kind of a struggle there to relate to others, and that's what we try to do. We try to relate and come together, and through our interest and whatnot. So that's kind of like a group kind of social thing, but you have to realize that the more people there are, usually the smaller the circle gets. You see, like, you know, if we're here, that's the full circle. I mean, okay, well, you're hanging out with your friend. It's like, okay, well, we have a lot of this stuff in common, but they don't like all the same stuff that I do, so I won't talk about this stuff for now. We'll just focus on this. It's like, okay, that's still cool. It's still a pretty big circle. There's still a lot of stuff to talk about and do. And then third friend comes along, and it's like, okay, well, it's all three of us now. So now the circle gets even smaller. Here's the things that we can all kind of do and relate to. And the more people you get, the smaller this this area is going to get. So it's kind of something we don't want. We want to be able to, again, express the totality. We want to be able to express who we are without, and be understood. Because if blue over here, tries to talk about or express some of the stuff that's outside of their kind of spectrum, they're not really going to understand it. They're probably going to react negatively to it. They're going to be, they're just going to probably be judgmental. They're going to be, they don't understand. They don't really understand where they're coming from. And a lot of times people are, they react negatively to things they don't really understand. So, a lot of what we do is we just kind of, a lot of people just forget about this stuff on the outside. They forget about their individual nature, and they just kind of, they just kind of become this. They just kind of become this common ground between everyone, because they want to be, like I said, we want to expand our circle and we want to be our circle, but we also want to connect with others. So what a lot of people do is they kind of just limit themselves to the common ground that is shared between everyone, so that they'll have friends. And obviously the problem here is that they're connecting with others, but they're also limiting their spectrum. So it's kind of a balance again that we want. That's the big kind of thing we have going on, is that we want to expand our consciousness and our awareness, and express ourselves, but we also want to connect with others. So now another factor I wanted to talk about is kind of this idea of consciousness expansion. So a lot of times I'll talk about how, there's all kinds of activities that expand our consciousness. Obviously, I mentioned that whenever you age, you start to consider more, you learn more. Reading and just living life in general is experience. And there's a lot of things that really serve as a catalyst. Like, there's a lot of events that could really shake you up, and things that you see and learn, and movies you watch that really raise your consciousness and make you think about things in a new or different or larger way. One of the big things and this is probably enough enough content for another kind of session, but it's psychedelics. Psychedelics are definitely known to expand consciousness and expand awareness, and I think that's what this is illustrated by, is this kind of growth of that. So let's say that, like, green here has, maybe he's a little bit older, maybe has experimented with psychedelics and has done a lot of meditating and thinking and reading and reflecting on nature and reality, and a lot of things, just a lot more experience in general, and trying to interact with with the others here. So because green is pretty all encompassing, there is a lot of common space here. One thing that we find, though, is that, yes, again, there's two things we want. We want to connect with others, but we also want to expand our consciousness and be who we are. We want to be our full circle. So green has expanded, but has found that because of the expansion, there's a lot of empty space here. There's a lot of what green is that it can't really talk about with red and blue, because red and blue wouldn't understand, and it would either confuse them or scare them or just make them feel uncomfortable to talk about these things. And I guess some examples of this would be, perhaps, just probably some like deeper ideas about, the nature of the universe, or the nature of consciousness, or, the future of society, or, just all kinds of just stuff, what I would consider more expanded ideas that are very interesting to, like, green, but red and blue don't really understand, so green's not really going to talk about it right now. But unfortunately for green, green is only able to be this tiny part of what green really is. So this is kind of a struggle, and I guess ultimately what green is hoping for is to expand, is help to expand the consciousness of red and blue, to expand and also to come together. And I guess there usually will be a little bit of overlap. There's some things that we don't quite share or think about. There's always the concerns of the individual. Green has to think about their job and their life to some extent. Red has to think about their job and their life. And I think it'll be that way for a while, but I guess what our goal should be is to maximize this area here. And the way that we maximize that is, yes, by coming together, sharing experiences and language and, music and art and just loving one another, just, sharing and also expanding our consciousness, because if red is here, and even if they're close, even if they have a lot in common, it's like, well, okay, green kind of understands most of what red is, but has almost no idea like what all is going on in green's kind of world, and that creates an imbalance, and it really isolates green. Um, and the one thing I also wanted to mention too, in terms of a long kind of like a very futuristic scenario down the road, is what we'd want is some kind of you know complete sharing with one another. And this is kind of what really intimate relationships or friendships or family ends up becoming, is almost like this total merge, this kind of like almost full understanding of one another. And that's a really beautiful thing. I think that's like the apex of the human experience, is to be able to be completely open with one another, and to just understand one another completely. I think that's what we're looking for, is this kind of not only to be able to come together, but also to continue to expand that total kind of area of what constitutes the human experience, and whatnot. So this is what we're moving towards right here. Alrighty. Thanks for watching.